just taking action. Like if I wouldn't have went to any of those, I don't know, I'd probably still be doing commercial finance. I don't even think I'd have the mindset I have now to actually have $90 million in the pipeline of commercial real estate deals, and I think about half that are being funded. I learned a lot.
I want to introduce all of you guys to Mr. Ryan Dumas. Is it Dumas or Dumas?
However you pronounce it, but French would be Dumas, but
Dumas. Ah, fancy. Okay.
however you want to say it, Dumas is fine with me. I've been
All
called
right.
worse.
No worries. No. Yeah, they pronounce it wrong on Starbucks, I'm sure. Awesome. All right. So Ryan is a commercial real estate investor, commercial mortgage broker with over 10 years of experience in commercial real estate financing, specializing in transactions of over $1 million through GRP Capital. And then over the last 6 years, has been actively investing alongside experienced operators across real estate and operating and things like that. And in addition, I know that you guys have partnered with a management team to acquire an insurance business, over $11 million in EBITDA. I'm not sure what that is, but it's a really cool
EBITDA.
acronym. And then through his work, he helps doctors, dentists, other high-income professionals earn 11 to 25% returns to get what we all want, which is financial freedom. And their mission is centered on JV equity, accountability, long-term partnerships, and glorifying God, through disciplined, ethical business, which we all love to hear. He's been in business 10 years, over 50 million in assets, 15 plus syndications, 4 JV deals, and around $9-10 million personally raised. So very, very interesting background. Let's get into it. So I'm curious, Ryan, I just want you to briefly describe your business model for us.
Yeah, I mean, we were into the complete syndication. We still work with raising capital and do it as a JV structure and make sure everybody's legal. But we, mainly a lot of our stuff is, we're looking to create a family. Whoever we're partnered with, I've had partners again where, they were everywhere, partying and doing different things. So it's like we look at operations of who's going to be doing what. Who's underwriting the deal, who's looking at this. And again, and not to get off of the multifamily, but, again, multifamily is a little rough. So we're looking, we have pivoted and shifted into more of the affordable housing and the niche businesses. I've closed on a lot of multifamily. We have a couple right now we're breaking even on, a couple we're losing on, a couple that we're refinancing. So again, it's not easy out there. We can all talk about how much we've raised capital, how much we've sold and everything, but it was a rough few years for a lot of us out there. I've been putting in money on a few deals. So I just want to throw that out there too. A lot of our investors that I've had since I've been doing commercial financing for, I think it's about 11 years now, was a lot of the hoteliers and some people that were investing into apartments as business owners. Now it's more shifted and pivoted to more the dentist, because the dentists are consistently making that 300K to 2-3 million a year, depending on how many places they have. We did develop an AI product, a machine called David, that we really haven't even advertised a whole lot, but it goes through and runs through each person user. Like if you get a high net worth list and go through, it goes through each person, their phone number, their email, location. It goes through the last 50 posts of top listings of Google, the 50 last text messages or comments on Facebook. Same thing with LinkedIn. And it can tell us, hey, Logan makes $250,000 a year. Looks like he's purchased 3 assets. Looks like he's refinancing and looking to invest into RV parks. Pretty crazy. Spent a good bit of money on that. But again, we're back to our basics, looking at dentists, talking to dentists. And I was a little all over the place. So I think now the best thing is I'm meeting dentists that are in Tampa, that are in Clearwater, that are in Jacksonville, that are in Orlando. So I can meet them in person. And then we're telling about our wins, our losses, our home runs and doubles. So, but again, right now we're telling them how good our mobile home parks are doing, affordable housing and how things are changing. And, I think the biggest thing is educating our investors. That's the biggest thing. I was always at the very beginning. I was in a few masterminds and everything. I mean, the Jake and Gino and Rod Cleve and a lot of these Deal Room and a few other ones out there, Family Mastermind. And a lot of them I thought, might have, kind of said how many units you're going to get, what's your age and everything, more looking to take an offense of some people that were like, hey, it's cash flow. And again, it is. But, so we had to break it down. And that's why we started pivoting and shifting into mobile home parks. And again, I like to say the number out there of, the cash on cash was always equity multiple and everything. But I like to say that they're hitting about that 11 to 13% cash on cash after 1 year. And the other 4 parks after 3 years, we're hitting our year 5 numbers. So, I mean, We have really good operators. Matthias and Tim Woodbridge out of South Carolina, they're awesome, awesome partners. So again, I think that's the biggest thing. And again, I think the EBITDA, I'll go on to that topic and then you can kind of interrupt. But again, it's not, we got to look at businesses. We got to look at real estate, us being entrepreneurs out here too. And I think it's good to be diversified. I know people that are in stocks and bonds diversified, but also real estate and non-real estate. But we did invest and bring in some capital for what's called SG Benefit Partners. It was a medical provider. We bought a few insurance carriers up because most of you, once they're starting to make 500 grand a year, $1 million a year, they stop. So we put a system together. And long story short, this was about June, a year and a half ago. We went into contract, I believe it was July or August of last year of 25 to sell it. We started off at a 3 million EBITDA, but I think it's 3 companies. And we had an AI go back and call all the old leads and just keep on. So we went from like a 50% closing rate and past clients to like a 98%, which is crazy. And again, it's all operations. I mean, I'll say that word over and over today and forever, but we went from a 3 million EBITDA, earned before income taxes, to I think it's a 10.5 million now, and we're on target to sell for a 7x multiple, and doing the same thing with a couple other companies right now too. I am a small partner on that. I'm not, it's actually, less than 1%, but 1% of almost $100 million is a good amount of money that my partner and I are going to split. So again, learning from all these things, even when you're a general partner, when I first got my first deal and I was a 0.5% equity. And again, one thing I didn't look at that I think a lot of people should is, hey, if I raise $1 million, what does that look like? You could raise $1 million on a deal. And if you're a 4.5% GP, and usually it comes out to about a third of that, around 1.5% equity, you're only going to make about $45,000 roughly. So you just got to figure out how much time am I going to be spending. So sometimes you can get on those deals that are an A or B deal and get paid less because time, I think, is more important. I didn't think about those, and it's not a bad thing, but I think it's, hey, this big value add, how much time am I going to be on it? And if there's asset management, acquisition calls on Saturdays, calls on, if you guys have kids or grandkids, I try to spend time after 5:30 p.m. on calls. And then all of a sudden at 6, 7 o'clock, you're getting calls. And you're like, man. And then you look back and you're like, wow, I didn't make any money, or I'm going to make about $35,000 on this. So again, I think that's the biggest thing for anybody is kind of reverse engineering what you think you're going to make on a deal too. But yeah, that's some of the basics on there, throwing a lot of things out there. We got into, starting our own thing called the Core. And it's just something that was not expensive to help people in the real estate and commercial real estate about what we've learned. And, we're not like, hey, we're better than anybody else. We just can tell you the things that we're good at. And I like connecting people. I'm like, hey, this person is really good to go. Why are you steering me to that person? Well, if you want to learn self-storage, I'm not the self-storage guy. If you want to learn mobile homes, go to Chris Root, go to Jason Postel, go to Tim Woodbridge, go to those people. So like, that's what it is. And again, it's not, it's how I can help others build in the kingdom. So
Very cool. Yeah, I know. I liked a few things you touched on. Unit count is not everything, right? I talk to people and they're like, oh, I want 1,000 units. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Is 1,000 units in LA the same as 1,000 units in Alabama? I don't know. And so having perspective on what you're trying to accomplish and why you're wanting to do it is really important. So really, really good answer. So what initially motivated you to pursue multifamily and commercial real estate and pursue a career, in this industry?
I can say I try to think I met Jason Postil there, but it was 2019 at a Rod Cleef event, whatever it is. So, I mean, that was one of my biggest events in 2019 that I went to and met a lot of people there, like, just taking action. Like if I wouldn't have went to any of those, I don't know, I'd probably still be doing commercial finance. And again, I don't even think I'd have the mindset I have now to, actually have, $90 million in the pipeline of commercial real estate deals. And I think about half that are being funded. So it's a journey, and, I learned a lot, but getting to Rod Cleef, the boot camp in Baltimore, I think it was 2019. And again, I was going to Best Ever Conference. I was going to all these meetups and meeting a lot of people that are in here and other events, and people that aren't even on Facebook no more that have completely crushed it, but really learned and was very disciplined and took action and everything.
Yeah. And so I know you mentioned, Jake and Gino, if like, I think a lot of us know these names. Did you have like a specific mentor or coach outside of, obviously the masterminds that a lot of people are in? Did you have like a specific person you really leaned on to guide you through everything? Or was it like a mix?
I don't think I really had a specific person. I can give, credit to people that I did have in my pods and everything else, can't can't think of his last name, but Bill for the Jake and Gino, Jason for our accountability. I know I had, again, in the family mastermind, I had people on there that were helping me with different aspects. I can say in the deal room, and again, it's different because I, listen to certain people, and I know deal room, I was, about to quit one time, just, kept in two years of, finding deals, trying to raise some capital and failed at it. And I'm like, hey, look at the numbers, look at location, and wasn't even telling them about the partners or anything about education, about self-directed IRA or any of that stuff or anything. Didn't even know how old the roofs were or nothing. But I can say the partners in the deal room, in South Carolina, I'd say those guys in there they were really good, helped out a lot on education and learning and keep me, motivated. I haven't been in there in a couple of years and everything myself, but a lot of people in here, just on the phone calls with Jason and even Trevor and everything else, meeting a lot of guys in here, but a lot of different people. So it was never one person, and then my partners, Jolene that are on here maybe, and then my partner Madeline from Entrere, but just a lot of people collectively that helped me out with different realms. So.
Yeah. I know that whenever we have these calls and we talk to a lot of different people, there's a common theme. You can't really do it on your own, right? You kind of need someone in your corner. Like, you want to learn how to do underwriting. Okay, you can watch some YouTube videos, but at some point, you're going to need somebody to come in and say, hey, here's what you're doing wrong, or here's what you're doing right. Here's what you can improve, right? So I think having a mentor and someone in your corner or a group of people is super important, right? And when it comes to the capital raise, right, that's a big issue for a lot of people, both when they're starting and when they're a little more experienced. So can you share an experience from your first capital raise or one of your first deals you raised for? What kind of challenges you faced and how you overcame them?
I think also just, having, good partners that always got on a Zoom call, because I think also people want to see a face. So when I got on these calls and I was like, hey, I'm a general partner of a deal, I'm investing some capital, I'm signing on debt or, putting earnest money. So telling them a little bit about us, but then again, getting our partners and the partners having time set aside to spend 30 minutes, an hour, hour and a half with them. And again, I had some that I didn't go through that I started off with and, I can't get on a Zoom. So again, but the ones that I did work for that we raised together on our deals that we were part of and still are part of, a few of them, again, just their good teamwork of being there and answering these questions of how the roofs are and how the HVACs are and every single question. So that, and then again, just any help or feedback of things that I didn't know, because I'm not a big underwriter. I would want to know the underwriting, but not spend 3 hours, inputting all the stuff in there. But, just a lot of people that really would help out. And then again, I look back of when I was trying to, tell people about a deal or location or whatever else it was, I wasn't educating them. And I think also I wasn't listening enough. I was more, kind of telling them. So a lot of things that people helped me. And again, it was a lot of numerous people, but, sometimes just listening is a good thing that right now.
Yeah, being able to be a good listener for your investors can go a long way, right? Just listening to their questions. So what are some ways that you implement and establish credibility with investors, right? Getting on the Zoom, that's part of it, but how do you, establish some kind of credibility to get them there in the first place?
To get them there in the first place? I mean, I think it's, one of the things on there is, is credibility is contacting them first. And some people just want to send out a mass text, mass email. And sometimes I'm guilty of that, or I used to be a lot, where there was times people were like, well, how many times do you call them? And I'm like, I was just texting them our link and texting them my, my portals and everything to fill up. Well, I was emailing them. So again, I think it's just like, hey, when can I get a call? Where's your money coming from? I think also just like today, I had a couple of calls with our behavioral health, and I was just the one person on there. I don't even think we talked about the deal. So I was like, how's life? What do you do? Family? Where do you live? So some of those things are important. And the guy's like, text me afterwards. And he's like, hey man, he's like, we didn't even talk about the deal. He's like, can you send me the portal? Like, and again, I mean, it's some of those things that you talk about, because I think sometimes people are like, hey, look at my pitch deck and just let me know how it looks. Like, not even asking like, here's the investment, here's this. Let me know what you think of, are we adding enough information about the comps in the area? Sometimes when you're telling that, they're like, dude, this deal looks really good. How can I invest in it? So some of those, I guess, reverse psychology things, but also just, educating, people on that. And again, following up, not bugging them every day where they're like, listen, man, I mean, I got to put into a self-directed IRA and, it takes like 5 to 7 days. So realizing that what company they have Schwab or Fidelity, everybody's different, but they're going to take 2-3 weeks. It's not going to be a quick one. So again, once a week, I was like, hey, Amanda, Amanda, I'm going to call you about next week. If you need anything else, I have Scott Mallard from Advance IRA. He's done, hundreds of our investors. I got somebody that's really good. I'm like, okay, cool. If you need anything, and everything. And then again, talking about them about asking questions. I'm like, is it a regular IRA? What are you doing? She goes, oh, we're doing a checkbook one, which again, those can be really advantageous if you're on numerous deals, but it's not always advantageous for one. And then she said, yeah, I want to do 4 or 5 of these deals. So again, me asking that question now, and she's putting more than 100K. Now I know again, that she might have 4 or 500K. So again, I think asking questions, I think also, having her husband being on the call, asking them. I know some people, if it's maybe not a good deal, I've heard them, we'll just make separate calls. I had another person today that I was talking to about investing, and he's like, well, I have my friend call. I'm like, well, if you might have the same questions or different questions and you want to hear the answers and maybe piggyback on some of those questions, why don't you guys both get on the same call if you can and go from there? I always think those are better because then they see different, views and different things that they might see, especially if the partner, I think, has lost a lot of money in certain deals. But again, I'm telling them, educating them, going, hey, I've seen a lot of people that had no assets that have been taken millions of dollars. Look up the address. If you're close to it, go visit it. If you're not close to it, have somebody else drive by it. Look and make sure the sign says apartments, the address meet. I mean, there's some of these things on here that people just don't see because there are people in a lot of these groups that will pay, 5, 10, 20 grand to be in these groups, and they're taking a lot of money. So I'm a banker, so you'll see some of this banking negative side to it, but you got to make sure that your investors are safe because they really don't care about making the money. They do, but their biggest worry is losing it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know and this is a common theme that I think a lot of the people we talk to really hammer home is, yeah, your deal is important, but your investors like peace of mind. If they like you and trust you and they're confident in you as a person, the deal will come, right? They'll ask the questions about the deal. But if that's your main focus, just hammering the numbers, like they're not going to be as comfortable.
Question about those same investors is following up, I think, would be the biggest thing too, because we've had some investors that have invested into, all of our mobile home parks. They've invested into the medical provider insurance wrap up, I guess you want to call it. They've invested now in our mental behavioral health. So I just think those are important, and just coming back and just asking them, hey, do you have any other friends that might be interested in, making some cash flow in some of these deals too? And it's kind of funny, they'll bring a friend on and it's like somebody I know sometimes. So it's a small little circle, but it's good because no matter how many times we email out or text out or whatever else it is, when we, sponsor an ad or have our AI working or our VA has reached out, they're like, oh, I didn't know you had a deal. I'm like, and sometimes I'm like, I've been calling you because you told me if you have a pretty good deal to reach out. But yeah, I think that's why I have a little bit of a VIP list of like 10, 20 people on there. I think it's around 15 or 16 actually exactly. But I always reach out to them first. And then, if they don't have any funds or already deployed those, because a lot of the people I have, somebody like, well, how come you're looking for more capital? I'm like, the people I have don't sit on too much money. They might sit on a, 25, 50K or something reserves, but they're always saving money. They're always reinvesting that capital to, where they can get at least the highest cash on cash, or at least a safe return while it's not sitting in a bank account.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned like dentists and different types of investors. What are some methods you use to find and attract them initially, right before you ever get them on the phone, using social media? I know you have your AI thing you guys are working on. So how do you guys find and attract them?
Well, you got to, I think oh, sorry, there's like a little lag. So, I guess you got to know who your avatar, your investor, your client is. And, they're at the dentist office. So, I know that I've had a few surgeons, they're working like 70, 80 hours a week. They're pretty hard sometimes. I don't know if anybody on here is a surgeon or not, but I found out the dentists are a little bit easier to work with. They're very knowledgeable. They've went to college for a long time. The first 2 or 3 years, once they are in the dentist field, they're trying to pay back their $200,000, $400,000 in school, and then they're trying to retire. So, but we find out that they take their lunch breaks around 1:30. We find out that they're at these, golf clubs or nicer restaurants. We find out that, a lot of the dentists will hang out with other dentists. They're asking, what, some don't do the same field and everything else. So they usually hang around with, a few different dentists and everything. And I had one dentist refer, I think, 2 or 3 other dentists to us that invested. So just finding out where they're at. Again, I know people that, are looking up certain industries on LinkedIn and paying for the extra thing, which I did. But if you're not looking for IT professionals or somebody that's on there all the time, whatever it is, some of these dentists and doctors, they're not on LinkedIn hanging out. And again, somebody else might have a better knowledge, but just trying to find out where they are, what they do. And a lot of doctors and in theory have been divorced a couple of times. So again, just really trying to get them to a point of asking them what they want. And a lot of them want to retire sooner and work less. So I think that's the thing, is finding out the pain point of them and how I can help them. And once you've helped one or two of the dentists, sometimes they'll refer you over. I'm in a couple of dentist Facebook groups. I'm in a couple of dentist LinkedIn groups, and just reaching out. And then I have a VA that I have, and I don't make any money off of it, but I have him help out with a couple of their dentists. And then when they, instead of me trying to make $1 to an hour or a fee, I always theory, partnership and what comes around goes around. That I have a dentist like, hey man, I was using your VA and everything for a while and everything. He's like, but what do you think about investing together? I'm like, whatever. He's like, I see your post and this and that, and I'm talking to him right now, and it looks like he's gonna be investing with us. So again, I just think having different things that fall in place that can help out them. And then also I'm like, hey, are you in this one group on Facebook? They seem to be helping out a lot on different procedures and this and that. Or there was one group that helps out with assistance. So one guy was having trouble with keeping employees, and I put him in the group there, and he's like, I'm getting so much help, so much this. And he actually invested a little bit of capital with us. And then I found out from his friend, he's like, dude, he's got way more money than that. So he's like, I think he just tested you with that 25K to see how you're gonna do with it. So again, just finding out where they're at and trying to solve a problem and help them.
Absolutely, yeah. Knowing where your investors are and your avatar, like Tim always talks about, being very particular, right? You can cast too wide a net. That's the thing, right? Like, let's say you want to raise money from dentists. Well, what kind of dentists, right? Where are they? What are their pain points? Because not every dentist is going to be a good investor for you. So making sure that you know who your avatar is, where they are, how do you get in touch with them, right? And not just saying, oh, well, I'm going to raise money from this group of people, I'm just going to email all of them, right? Doesn't really work like that anymore. So very good. And whenever you are ready to promote a deal, both for like your VIP lists, which I'm assuming is just really telling them, but even like these newer dentists, right, that you're having initial conversations with, do you guys have any marketing strategies when you're ready to promote a deal, doing like case studies, or what's like your go-to when you're like, okay, we have a deal, we need to promote it?
I mean, it's a few different things. Sometimes we'll get an email campaign that's going out going, hey, we're looking at this behavioral health, mental health that we're doing right now. We partner with a company, and their sister company, the one partner, is selling for 9 figures right now for his piece. So again, I'll tell people, hey, we have this deal coming along, or here's the cash on cash numbers that they hit and everything. So I'm showing them numbers, and I'm like, hey, we're at 98% occupancy. So I'm kind of little teasers out there to what we have done or our partners have done. And then, if they're asking for numbers and this and that, I don't know yet. It's still in the works. And again, that helped out. I think I got a couple of our JV partners involved. And sometimes I'll go out and shoot a text or a call, because if you have a list of 15, 16 people, it's easy to call those instead of going through your active campaign of 3, 4, 5,000 people. I think it's about where we're at, is around a little over 5,000 people. And again, it's about that relationship. I can say, hey, did you get that prep payment for the Spartanburg mobile home parks? No, we didn't. And then I'll go in there, and it helps me to go back and adjust and go look in the portal and say, hey, your email is wrong, your banking, oh, we got new banking, new card or new wire information, or Wells changed this. So then it goes back of me updating them and keeping that going. So just email, text, call. We do have that AI machine called David, and sometimes I thought one of my investors, might not have any more capital, and it shows me that they sold a business for $2-3 million, and I can call them up now and say, hey, I saw you guys sold a business on whatever, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, whatever it is, and I don't have to say I have a machine that bite on you or saw it, but it's pretty cool. And they're like, yeah, we need to deploy, and sometimes I'll get back to them, did you guys pay taxes on that? Well, again, they might need to deploy 2, 3, 400 grand for a deal that has a value add for a cost egg. So, but yeah, just all of those. It's not just one thing. And then again, my VA will put something out there, have a deal coming up, or have 1 spot or 2 spots left, or whatever it may be. So just a little bit of everything. I think that's how it works for a lot of stuff that we do.
Gotcha. And your ideal like client profile you're targeting right now, like the dentist and that kind of thing, do they have a primary motivation for investing? Like, do you find that your investors say, hey, I prefer more equity or cash flow or appreciation? Like, do they have like a primary want when you first talk to them, or do you have to kind of massage them into, hey, here's what you should be looking, and educate them?
Well, I usually ask them what they're looking for. Sometimes I have a deal that doesn't make sense for them, and they're getting ready to sell something that needs a big depreciation, like I did even last year and even now. And I tell them, hey, these behavioral health, mental health are cash flowing, 25, 30% in the 12th, 13th month, but we don't own the building. Like, the real estate is going to cost almost twice as much. We're going to have to bring in, twice the amount of capital, if not 3 times the amount of capital. Why don't you call Jason up, call this person up, call Tim up, and everything else that I, go. I'm like, but look at the deal, look at the partner, look at the team and all that. But, because again, I can say, hey, invest in this deal. But again, I always find out what they want. And if it is somebody that's newer and they're like, hey, we're making, 300,000 a year, and just roughly always go to the 10 month, and say it's 30,000 a month, which is like what, 26, 27K. And I'm like, you need to, be investing into X amount to start making that. Some people invest into stocks, and if you got to be able to replace that income. There's so many people that want to jump into real estate when they're having a $200,000 a year job, and I'm like, where's your cash flow at? And again, this is what people told me, and I think I might have got offensive, 5, 6 years ago. But again, if they only have $2,000 a month cash flow from their short-term rental, their one or two, 2-bedroom homes or whatever it is, you got to have enough money for at least 6 or 12 months to get by, unless you're closing on some big deal or you got an extra 8 or 10,000 cash flow coming in soon. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I try to figure out what they want. And if I'm like, hey, I really think that if you put in 200 grand on this thing, you're going to make an extra 50,000 a year, that you can retire your wife, since she's making 65, 70, it's close enough. And then again, put in on another deal. And then, some of these guys like, hey, I don't really care about the cash flow right now. I just want to make X amount of dollars. But I also, tell them, hey, this deal is cash flowing. You can keep putting the money every quarter or two back into another deal or whatever that may look like. Or, also when we sell this deal, it's roughly, not guaranteeing anything. It's roughly a 3 to 10x multiple just on the sale. And again, those are rough numbers at like a 5 to 7 EBITDA, not the 11 that our partner's already selling. Because again, we don't know that, if cap rates or EBITDA numbers are going to compress, change, or anything else in the years. Because I've been with the real estate the past long, 5, 6 years, that we didn't think the rates were going to go up 400 to 500 basis points. So I don't know what's going to happen if 4 or 5 behavioral mental health go across the street. But I know my partners are exiting a $9 million business, and I can tell them credibility, what I think they can make, and give them educational, from what money they have. But again, if I had somebody that says they have $500,000, I'm like, I would put, 100 to 200K into one of these. I don't ever want anybody to put all their money into one deal or one thing in case something happens. So always just trying to help them out as best as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was going to ask next is, do they prefer to focus on a single asset type or diversified across multiple asset types? Or do you kind of help them with that? Like, hey, I have this one, this mobile home park, but you should also look at, these other businesses that I invest in. Or do they prefer, like, do people come to you and say, hey, I only want to invest in one kind of asset?
I mean, I have different investors that do both. I had probably about 10 people that were going to invest in the medical thing. And again, it's a little bit longer way around it, but I was like, hey, I'm like, you guys, I wasn't looking at my stuff, and I was calling people. I was like, you invested in that deal, right? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh shoot. I'm like, never mind. Like, what is it? And I'm like, well, we're selling that deal. I thought you did. And she's like, no, we were going to, but last minute my wife said no. And he's like, is it good or bad? I'm like, well, we're selling for a 3x equity multiple, and it'll be sold in June or July of 26. It's the same private equity has it in contract. It's, pretty close to closing and everything. I knew we should have, but again, it's one of those things. But different people, different deals. Sometimes I'd have a mobile home park deal and another deal going on. And if they're more, kind of like we said before, if it's more of a depreciation thing, they're making a lot of money, they can do the rep status. But also with these JV deals, we get them where they're active. So they have a way of doing the cost segregation study and claiming that status where they can, depreciate their capital, especially the guys and gals that are making $1 million a year in the dentist doctor's office. They're having a $300,000 to $400,000 write-off per year. Wow. So yeah, just helping them out, whatever is needed. And again, if it's nothing that I can do and they're like, hey, I want this, and I have a deal, I'm like, hey, the pref return on it, for the first year or two is going to be 6 or 7%. If you're really wanting to make 10, 15, 20% in the next 12 months, you might want to find somebody that's doing a bridge loan, a first position or something. So, again, educating them where that the long term is, not even going to help. Well, it's not going to help me at the beginning, but longer down the road, they're like, oh yeah, Ryan had me invest into Logan because of this, or AJ or Jason because of that. So I do that just like I'm a commercial financing. Oh, the seller's willing to do a 10% down, 5% rate. Okay, if like and trust them, and they're giving you a 25 or 30-year amortization, but again, make sure you do this, and this, and make sure you get all the financials, get all the tax returns. Because I've had it different ways where they've closed on it, and then 3 months later, like, oh, I can't work with this person. I'm like, well, I asked you if you trust them. And you're like, not really, but the rate sounded good. Again, it's the know, like, and trust that everybody talks about is very important, because again, if you can't refinance, there's your exit plan. So anyways, yeah, but yeah, just kind of working on what their needs and what their wants are, and if I have a product for them, and going from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important to, try not to shoehorn investors, right? And make sure, like, hey, is this something that they're comfortable with? Is this something they need? And if not, not, maybe I put them in a bucket until I have something that they need, so that that relationship doesn't go to waste because I try to force them into something they definitely don't want. Maybe down the line, I'll have something that makes more sense for them.
There's so many things of syndication, JV deals, whatever it is, and if somebody's making whatever the number is, everybody's different of what they have, but they're making $100,000 a year and they got $25,000 to $50,000, and it's a deal out there. I don't think, in my mind, that they should be invested into a syndication or a deal that they're not going to make capital for a year, 2 years. I think they should be investing that money into, the fast money where they can start making 10, 15% return, whatever it is now, so that they're not working on their slow money, that 3, 4, 5 year stuff, because I think that slower money is, again, that's why I have it for the accredited investor. Somebody that has, 400,000, 500,000, somebody that makes 800,000 or a million a year that can put 100, 200K in a deal and they still have 3, 400K that year that they can save. I've had, it's just, I don't know, it's one of those things that somebody's like, hey, here, I just want to get on a deal. Now, it's good if they want to get in on the deal as an LP or GP and they want to learn, because even for free, I've learned a lot being a general partner, an LP and GP and KP and all that type verbiage. So it's a lot of learning. And, again, sometimes we don't learn until, things happen as well, too. I mean, we've been locked out of bank accounts on stuff. So, I mean, again, it's a challenge, but you really got to know your partners. And I think it's also, when you're raising capital, you have to know all your partners, not just 2 or 3 of the GPs. If there's 8 on there, let me talk to them, because again, they could have 8% GP and you could be 2%. You want to know all your partners, and that's going to help you with knowing your team when you're raising capital to your passive investors.
Absolutely. Yeah, very well said. I'm curious, do you long term, right? I know you said, hey, call them, right? Follow up with them. How do you kind of cultivate and maintain those long term relationships so that your VIPs are like VIPs, right? Do you have any strategies you use? Like, do you do like newsletters, direct mail, write them, send them, hey, happy birthday? Like, do you do anything like that on top of the, regular follow up? Anything special, I
we
guess?
really don't have a birthday thing, which would be a pretty good idea, but we usually try to reach out, every quarter to our investors, for the good and the bad stuff. I mean, it's, it was rough a year, 2 years ago on some of the deals and everything, but, you have to reach out to them at a certain time. So I think it's just being consistent. I think my VIP people that I have on there, it's about every quarter, even if there's no deal or going on. I'm like, hey, just so you know. And I like it personal. So it may, we have some emails going out, but I'll have on there going, hey, just so you know, we did pass up on these 2 deals here, or, hey, I know you invested X, Y, and Z. We should be closing that deal in the next few weeks, but just keeping them updated. And then also telling people that, hey, I'm like, that deal we had a couple of years ago with the wrap up private equity that, that you didn't believe in, again, it's all operational, and we're, going to 3X the capital, and again, I have about 5 people that are waiting for another deal like that. And like, well, when you get another deal like that, let me know. And I'm like, well, I've seen, 10, 20, 30 of those deals like that. Well, why didn't you invest in them? Like, because of partnership operation. We have a really good one. The other ones will start sending me a pitch deck of stuff. And I'm like, how long did you guys, how long are you operators for, and everything. And I tend to ask a lot of questions. And I think that's how you can tell sometimes an experienced partner, and some people get, upset about it. It's like, why are you asking so many questions? But I think it's important because you want to know about the deal. You want to know about the partners and everything. But
Gotcha. Okay. And whenever we've gone through like finding investors, educating them, nurturing them, and staying top of mind, every quarter, every few months. So whenever you do have a deal, what steps do you guys take to ensure that the funds are ready to go, in the sense that you're not needing to hustle, right? You're never scrambling whenever you do have a deal you're raising.
I think kind of like back to what you said before, it's about going out and saying we have a deal that's coming about. Because even so, you're like, hey, we had the LOI executed. We didn't go forward with the PSA. Oh, okay. I was, I had the capital ready to go. At least now we got them prepared and ready. And again, there's times that we've had that, they've said no. And then a month later, hey, we have another deal here. We're ready to go on, just getting them ready. And this could be usually as an email, sometimes a text to the top investors and everything. And sometimes they're, like, hey, I know last month when you had that deal, I had $100,000 sitting aside, but since you updated us and everything else, we actually invested that, we invested $200K in a deal. I'm like, oh, shoot. So anyways, I mean, but you live and learn, but the more you update them and get them back and responsive. And I think that's why it is important to have somebody that really is making those calls often. that's something that we don't always do. We'll do it to the, top 20, 30, 40 and making phone calls. And then I'll see somebody on Facebook. I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm like, I haven't seen them in a while or whatever it is. But, just trying to build that relationship. And there's people that I've known that, have been wanting to get into all the mobile home parks, the medical provider wrap up, another wrap up that we're part of, and these behavioral health. Well, I don't want to because there's no real estate. I'm like, I understand, but I said, a partner is selling a 9-figure deal that he's a partner of and had it for 11 years, learned all the bumps and roads. What do you not like about it? So, I'll just go in the education. I tell them, like, listen, do you see any mental or behavioral health for sale? Like, just Google it up, look the company up. And again, they're invested with us after all that. I gave them the website. I gave them all the information. I'm like, listen, I think this is the best stuff out there right now. 2, 3, 4 years, if there's a lot more demand, a lot more supply come out there, maybe we aren't doing a 45, 50% cash on cash. Maybe it's 25, 30. But again, even at a 25%, cash on cash numbers that we're doing, we have no debt on 6 locations. So me as a finance person, I can pull $1 million, $2 million out of these deals and start, obtaining some more, which 2 of them are 14 months old. One, we have a celebrity in New Jersey that's about a month and a half, 2 months old, and another one that's slowly building up. And then another one that's a satellite office that's a smaller one. So again, these other ones we're buying now are 5,000 and 6,000 square feet location wise. And again, so just talking to the investors and having that relationship with them of real estate, but it's also business and operations.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. Yeah. I think having your background gives you a very unique, having the debt kind of banking, you mentioned earlier, like, oh, it might be a little negative, but sometimes that's what people need. It's not all sunshine and roses, right? So being able to understand both sides of the fence is, I think, probably gives you guys a really good perspective to give back to your investors too, right? Like, hey, I've seen the debt side and the banking side of the business. These are the things you need to know. So that's really, really cool.
And it's important because if you go to a broker or 10 bankers and nobody can finance your deal, it's probably not a good deal. Both sides, 0.5 debt service cover ratio, your performance shows 1.2 at a $250 increase in rents, and you're at already 95% occupancy. Do you think you're going to raise that at a 1970 building? And again, so I look at that as a GP, an LP, and a broker. I'm like, well, again, well, I'm not having any banks like it. I'm like, well, to be honest with you, if this is a newer asset and you think you can raise it $400 and you're being conservative, could be a good deal. But if you're looking at this and it's an older asset, not as many amenities, and you think you're going to people are just going to all of a sudden pay $250 more a month right now in this volatile market, I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, it's crazy how things work. But yeah, the vacancies aren't where they used to be. So
absolutely. Yeah, I know, we talked earlier about, sometimes, especially the last few years in multifamily, for a lot of people, things have been rough. Have you guys faced a situation where you lost money at a capital call? How did you and your team kind of navigate through that with your investors?
We did. We had a couple of them ourselves. I have one right now I'm still paying off of. I had one I paid for the GP. I got another one that we're working on right now of getting our investors evened out. And then we have an apartment complex, I believe, that we're gonna get the investors' money back that we probably would have lost 50 or 60% at one time. But again, I think it's keeping up with our investors, keeping them happy. I had one that I'm like, hey man, I'm sorry we broke even on this deal, and he's like, dude, listen, I lost $2 million in 10 deals in Houston, Dallas, whatever it is. I'm like, oh shoot. And he's like, also, I was on one of your deals there, but I didn't invest with your side. But I'd like to invest with you down the road because you called me 2 or 3 times to tell me that the deal wasn't doing good. And again, I didn't think about it. I was like, he's like, the other person was not responsive to me. I saw you on Facebook, so I called you. I knew you were a partner, and that's kind of what when you are raising capital, you don't know all the LPs on both sides sometimes, whatever else it is. And I think that's why it's important to try to get to know them. But again, I was just trying to help the guy out. And, there was not some nice words at the beginning. And I'm like, hey, here's what we're trying to do to get squared up. We do have a insurance claim that should be getting everybody pretty close to being whole. And then just follow them back up because I think we have a couple of claims with, because we had a hurricane hit, we had tornadoes hit, we had floods hit in Atlanta area at an apartment complex, flood in North Carolina. We had ice that hit our places. So we had some stuff. And again, it got me more humble where, these things can happen in any anything.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just really just trying our best to be as following up with the investors and us pitching in as much money as we can and getting everybody as hold as we can too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that it's, especially after the last few years, some investors have been soured a little bit, obviously, especially in multifamily, because of, after the rate hikes happen, some of these businesses, they're no longer with us, right? They're under. And so that honesty of being upfront about it, like something that we talk about a lot, I would rather work with an operator who is super, super transparent and is easy to get a hold of, and their deal isn't a slam dunk home run. Like it's a good deal versus a really good deal, but someone I can't ever get on the phone, right? Because if anything ever happens, it's, radio silence. But I know at least with the guy who has a good deal, it's not, the best deal on the planet, but I know that I can call, I can email, I can text, I can get a response, right? Just that like human aspect of it is super important. These are people, not just, paychecks. So I think it's a really important way to look at it. So really good answer, Mike. And do you guys manage, I don't think you manage a fund. Are you looking to do a fund sometime this year or in the near future or no?
We aren't doing a fund. I think once we get these last couple of deals done, I think we're going to look at a venture capital, just because usually a couple of them can write some checks. You can get them a little bit of equity and some stuff. So I've reached out to 3 of them. So I'm looking at, some 1.5 to 5 million check writers that can get a little bit of equity, a little bit of the private equity kind of side and some kind of payment or whatever that looks like. So yeah, I think more the venture capital side. And again, even learning on these private equity wrap up deals of what's out there. And it's easier to raise, from people that have $1 million to 5 million than somebody that's got 25 to 50K in their account right now because of, just the middle class getting kind of sucked up right now. So I think probably not on a fund, just because people I know that are really picky on, what deals they want, where they want them at. And then, venture capital of coming in and doing, 3 or 4 locations, which is, kind of like a fund too. But that's kind of where we're at ourselves. But yeah, just wrapping up a Florida mental health right now.
Gotcha. And speaking of what's happening right now with middle class and the economy, like what are your predictions for the market? How are you guys kind of preparing for 26 and 27 moving forward?
Man, I wish I had a crystal ball on everything, man. It's like, what I mean? Because even being in the finance side, where we go to these meetings where Wells and UBS and everybody are at in Miami and stuff with our company, and they went out to, I think it was San Diego real estate conference out there, and you think we're on top and we know some of this stuff, but I thought the rates were gonna start coming down in February or March. But again, I don't know. The only things that I do know are what's actually happening right now, and I think it, sticking with where we're at and having a refinance of if the rates do not go down at all. Hey, what if the cap rates aren't 6.5? What if they go to 7.5 in the area? So just I think being ultra conservative about some of these things. And I've seen some underwritings that people are like, hey, we're going to refinance at the 4.5. I'm like, I can get a 5.25 rate right now, but I would just put it at a maybe a 6 or something. So all those things in there, it's just being very careful of what we're doing. The banking side of me comes in of what's your exit plan. I think affordable housing, and again, it's crazy because it depends on what president and this and that in 3 years and even now. So I think it depends on your area, looking at your location or where you're investing into. What can your area do? What other areas can you invest in? If that makes sense. By me, flips may not make sense to most people in Clearwater, but I think that there's some locations that could work with 2, 3, or 4 townhomes that come in there. You can come in there, and if the land's $40,000-$50,000, now you're at $14,000, $15,000 a unit. Now you're not having to spend $400,000 in a home that somebody can't afford. You can have them at $250,000, $275,000 now, and now you're making whatever $65,000 to $80,000 a side, and they're built pretty quick, and you don't need a whole lot of room there. It's almost about 1/10 of an acre per unit usually. So I think just looking outside the box, a lot of people are trying to go from hotels to multifamily conversion, just seeing what's working. I think the LIHTC in certain area, some of the HUD, all in for mobile home parks still. I still think a lot of and again, I just don't know this. I kind of battle it sometimes. I think a lot of this 1960s and 70s are going to get pushed down back into more of a trailer park because I see it in the sector of hotels. The more that people come in with a new brand from Marriott, Spark, Hilton, and then Marriott will come in with a different brand there too. With all these new brands coming in, it pushes the middle down, it pushes the lower down. So I think that a lot of these places that are developing new mobile home parks, again, I don't know if they're going to get $600 or $700 a month rent. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think also there's always going to be a need for it I just don't know if, hey, we can move these $300 rents to $500 rents in 3 or 4 years. So that's one of those
Mm-hmm.
things I'm just being conservative on. But again, whatever you're working on right now, just being conservative. And with the financing side, I think the people that I've learned from and talked to that are very successful is they're putting more money down on deals. Instead of trying to close 2 deals a year, they're closing one deal. It's apartment complex, hotel, where it is. They're putting 35, 40% down on a deal right now. And I've noticed people that did that during the last 3 or 4 years. I'm like, man, why are these people putting 35, 40% down, whatever it is, on a deal? And I even seen Vince Gettings from Liberal Profits do the same thing, and he does that. And again, if I have a lot of SBA 504 loans, SBA 504 green, and people are putting down 15 and 20% down. That can be good if there's a value add and they're going to increase the value, 15, 20%, they're back into a, 70% LTV. Well, if your value goes up from an 85%, you might be at 95 or 105% LTV. Now you're in debt. So, I think also if you're creative finance. So again, just getting into something that makes sense, not jumping, but having that slippery slope of, making sure you do have that mindset of, hey, I can do this with the right partnership, with the right education to do this. I mean, I know people that spend $50,000 to go into a self-storage mastermind, and then they come out and they want to do multifamily. I'm like, did you know that? Well, they kind of had a good sales pitch or whatever it is. I'm like, well, pray about what you really want to do and what you like to do, and do that. But yeah, you just got to see where it's shifting of where everything is. And everybody's so bullish right now on the data centers. But I'm seeing a couple of these data centers that got built in Michigan, and there's like 4 employees there after it's got done. So, these apartments and hoteliers and different industries are like, oh, it's going to boost the economy. Well, it will the first year or so being built with everybody that's there and everything else, but it kind of dies off. And then again, there could be pros and cons. Again, me being the banker, that people are going to want to go in there and go, hey, I've heard people having a lack of water in those areas. So again, I think it's really knowing your industry, what the effects are going to be down the road for it. And I've known people that I actually know a couple of farmers that aren't selling their land because they don't want that to happen, even though they're going to get $5 million from the land. They don't want the water and the usage because they have other friends or farmers there. But again, I think just affordable housing, niche businesses. Everybody's jumping into blue collar and stuff like that, but there's going to be a lot of people retiring from them. But I think I do see the EBITDA numbers. If they're like 10x when you hit $2 million, I think they're going to go down to like 7 or 5 because of all the supply that's going in there. So again, I think just being conservative on what you do.
Yeah, I mean, you'd rather be safe than sorry,
Yep.
A few years ago, people were not safe and they were very sorry, specifically in multifamily, but even in some other asset types when the rate hikes happen and everything like that. So very good, very good, very good. I'm curious, some of your tools that you guys use. Do you have any favorite tools or resources, syndication software that you guys rely on? And you guys have the David. Do you guys have anything that you recommend other people use?
We like active campaign, but I mean, again, I think if somebody is starting off, I don't think they should be in spending $50, $150, $200 a month until they start getting out there, because then you partner with somebody and they got, we have cash flow portal that we use for our deals. And I think it's great for sending out K1s and sending out distributions. I think it's one of the best ones out there. Had kinks a few years ago and everything, but we like them a lot. I mean, Syndication Pro, but any of those deals you get into, and when you partner with others, if you're not the main operator, you're going to end up sharing 2 or 3 of those tools. But whatever you like that's easiest for you, that's cost effective. If you're not raising for a deal right now, again, just like I said, there's no reason to get the pro version of something and start throwing in 10, 20, 30 contacts in there. Get your 100, 200 contacts, reach out to them once every couple of months on your Google Sheets, your exported data, whatever that looks like to you, your Excel sheet, whatever, and reach back out. And then, if you start getting busy or you have a very busy job and you have a high net worth list, have a VA reach out to them about, hey, what are you investing into? My name is Ryan. I'd love to meet up with you and talk to you about how we, have been successful. We failed at some businesses, and now we're in mobile home parks and behavioral health, and we have incredible cash flow numbers. We'd love to just, get on a call and see how you're doing. I mean, that's one thing that if somebody's making a lot of money and they're busy, they can have that, or they can have an AI service. But so, yeah, I'm actually getting an AI thing set up right now that can talk to people like at night when people are on there about a loan for my loans and everything, going back and forth. And I just sent in a bunch of questions today that can be sent back and forth. And again, if we're making more money while we're sleeping, that's what we all want to do. In the commercial finance, like COVID it was slow. When the rates were going up, it slowed down. Just because I'm doing a lot of business in the commercial finance now doesn't mean I made a lot of money in COVID. Doesn't mean I made a lot of money in 23. So it's a lot of work, but we just got to pivot and shift to what we're all doing.
Absolutely. You got to be able to adapt. The ones who do are still here, right? So I'm curious if you could go back, right, have a magic wand and restart your real estate investing journey. What would you do differently, if anything, aside from investing in Bitcoin, 10 years ago?
Yeah, I'd love it to have it where anything was at the low and it's doing well now to know when to invest. I mean, I think at least, the couple of times like that I said I was going to buy a duplex or a condo that was, $50,000 that are now like 700-800 grand now. And, the pre-construction when back in the 90s was actually a pre-construction and you spent a little bit of money on them. They always doubled or tripled. I think just investing earlier and spent money on more investing back into my 20s instead of more drinking and partying. I mean,
Your
I
20s are for, man. They're
I
for
didn't
having
do any real
fun.
estate or any of those things, but we went out to restaurants, we had a blast. And if I could have put that money into whatever, it could have been anything, stocks, bonds, S&P. I mean, anything, anybody that's out there, sometimes it's like, I think the hardest thing is saving that first 25K. So I think it's like, hey, put 5,000 towards this, put 5,000 towards that. Work with a guy right now that started off with $7,000 in an account and has made, a few $100,000 in certain options and everything. And again, it's just some of those things. He's like, I spend 18 hours a day on there. I'm like, geez, finding out certain things. He's on and off and on and off. He's not sitting there looking at the 5 screens all the time. But again, I think it's really just working with people that are doing really good things and teaming up. Would have went to some networking events early, met the people that I've met, 10, 20 years earlier than that. But I think God has this journey of the reason I didn't have, anything or any of those skills back then is I probably could have done different things with them at that time that I wasn't mature enough to do, because we're still, increasing and doing a few things now to get to where we need to be. We're not there yet.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so piggybacking on that, what kind of advice would you give someone who aspires to, do 50 plus million in real estate, raise $5 to $10 million, but doubts their ability to achieve that?
Work with somebody that's done it. Talk to somebody that's been through, at least 1 or 2 recessions, depressions, whatever that, looks like, and somebody that's failed. Because if somebody that hasn't failed either hasn't tried enough times, and again, I know somebody that's bought land 65 times and sold them and hasn't. I'm not saying they have to, but just talking to people, because there's people I was talking to that have been in it for 6 months, a year and a half. I'm like, listen, don't talk to them, but also it's not about the to go the other way. It's not all about the 58. I know people that have $500,000 $2 million mobile home parks that make, $5, 6, 7, $8,000 a month cash flow, on a smaller asset. And they're either, 100% owner, 50%. And they're like, oh, you have this. I'm like, no, man. I'm like, people might advertise it that way, but sometimes you could be doing better than somebody else. Again, I don't like working by myself. I don't like underwriting. I'm not a big builder or developer construction person. So I like to work with people, connect, and talk to people. That's why the, investor, JV partner, and then the financing, the numbers, I like to look at them, but I don't want to be a data entry person. So I think it's good to feel, hey, I would like to work with 2 or 3 partners on this. And there's people that don't like working with anybody, but I always think that, you don't have to have a lot of partners, but at least bring people on, your team, whatever that looks like. But yeah, definitely would advise to, being on a team, learning from others that have been through different recessions and that are, again, back to conservative and everything else, because there's
absolutely,
you got to take the action. But I think also some people might say, hey, don't do, this deal right now. Be careful in this deal. Don't get a bridge loan on this deal. And again, we didn't have a whole lot of bridge loans, which was, thank God. But I know people that had, 8 bridge loans. And, right now it tells me on a bridge loan, hey, I'm like, this is only a 2 or 3 year loan. If you're renovating, 300 units or something, and you never have done anything like this, I mean, it's, it's a big deal. And again, yeah, well, 6 banks turned this down. Again, it's going to make it harder to raise your capital for the investors there too. So
gotcha. Very, very good advice, in my opinion. Very good advice all around. Ryan, you've been super generous today, sharing your knowledge and all your experiences. What's the best way the audience can support or give back to you?
I left my number down below, my phone number. I'm on Facebook. I'm full of Facebook friends. So you can follow me, message me, either myself or my VA will get back. Ryan Dumas, my name on there. But again, I think text is the best way to get a hold of me. So again, reach out to me on Facebook, text, email. I do have my email in the chat here. So, and then if you guys want, I can stay afterwards for a little bit and everything too. So
yeah, I reposted it down there in the chat, so you guys definitely reach out to Ryan, and yeah, I really appreciate if you can stick around for the breakout sessions. That'd be awesome. But I really appreciate you coming on. I've never had the opportunity to talk to you directly, but being in Tampa, I've heard quite a bit about you. I think you know Alex Otwell. I worked with him for a few years as well, so it's always funny to kind of finally get that
oh
connection.
sweet, were you in Philly Mastermind at all with him?
I wasn't. No, I did all of his
Okay.
acquisitions. So when he
Okay.
did his mobile home thing and his flips, I was doing all before I worked for Tim. I worked with him around COVID until a few years ago. So
No, that's awesome, man.
yeah, when you mentioned Family Mastermind, I was like, oh yeah, I gotta bring that up at some point. But awesome, man, really good stuff. Yeah, we're gonna do the breakout sessions. But before that, everyone has to turn on their camera because we have to do a group picture. So everyone's turn on your cameras. Let me see the beautiful, beautiful faces. Move the spotlight here. All right. Don't be shy, people. Come on for the group picture. We're going to put you on Facebook. You're going to look all pretty. All right. Ryan, I think you know our pose around here. We flex on them. Show me those guns. All right. Everyone ready? All right. 3, 2, 1. Awesome.